We are in Brampton's Veterans Museum. Ontario government has announced Veterans Award, so it will happen every year starting November this year. So ਅਸੀਂ Veterans Museum 'ਚ ਹੈ ਬ੍ਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਦੇ, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਕਿ ਓਨਟਾਰੀਓ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੇ ਅਨਾਉਂਸ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਹਰ ਸਾਲ ਨਵੰਬਰ ਮਹੀਨੇ 'ਚ Veterans Award ਦਿੱਤੇ ਜਾਓਗੇ under the Veterans Act. So let's see the shots of the museum and let's see what our elected reps have to say on this.
Hi, Sat Shri Akal, Namaskar, Assalamu Alaikum, Main Twada, Brampton North PC Party, MLA Graham McGregor. Here today announcing the launch of our Veterans Community Service Award in Ontario. People who have served our country, put their lives on the line to defend the freedoms that we hold so dear. I don't know if we can ever properly thank them for their service. But we can sure as heck try. And what the Ontario government has done, the first province in Canada has launched a award honouring veterans for their community service here at home in partnership with the Royal Canadian Legion Ontario Provincial Command. And we're just so grateful to have this opportunity to give thanks to our veterans community. Many of them are here today. The portal launches today, closes August 31st. We look forward to giving out some awards this November to exceptional veterans all across our province.
Hi everyone, Charmaine Williams, MPP for Brampton Centre and Minister for Women for Ontario, and we are at the Lorne Scott Museum, and I'm here with my colleague, the Honourable Graham McGregor, who just announced that we are honouring our veterans. We are giving a new award that is open. The portals are open today, and the awardee will receive the award in November. We need to say thank you to all of our veterans who've served in our Canadian forces. And we have local members of our community who've committed themselves to protecting our freedom. And so we need to say thank you to them. And so please, if you know a veteran that is deserving of this honor, check out the portal through our Ontario websites and put somebody forward to receive this honorable award.
My name is Henry Brisson. I'm the Government and Community Liaison for the Regimental Association of the Lorne Scott Field Duffin and Halton Regiment. We are here today in our Regimental Museum to host the announcement of the new portal opening today for the new Veterans Award offered by the Province of Ontario for excellent community work by veterans in Ontario. We acknowledge that this particular minister and the provincial government wholeheartedly support the veterans in Ontario, and we appreciate hosting their event today. Thank you. Scott, we opened this last May. We had our grand opening, so we're a year old. We're going to start at the beginning and we're going to move around. Some of these displays are interactive. Could we be able to try some stuff on and take pictures of it and things? So we start at the beginning. This regiment is older than the country. In the 1790s, 1791, the colony of Upper Canada was established, and from there we had self-defense companies and et cetera along, and we started that here at that time. The Lieutenant Governor was John Graves Simcoe. We have a special connection to Major General Isaac Brock. We're moving now into the War of 1812. The 2nd York Regiment comprised of members of this community, Brampton community, and they were there when Major General Isaac Brock died at Queenston Heights. It's one of the battle honors that we have in this regiment, and you'll find it on the cenotaph in downtown Brampton. It is reported that his dying words were "on York militia on," encouraging the members of this community to thrust onward and win the battle, and they did. We have a number of you'll find QR codes on these pictures. If you scan them in with your phones, you'll get more information on all of these. So we are also in Detroit. We have some journal entries by a Private William McKay, who was in Detroit. And again, he was the 2nd York Militia. And he had some first-hand experience. And again, that code will show you where. Let's move on. Queenston Heights, we've talked about. Captain John Chisholm, again, War of 1812. One of the first Chisholms. The Chisholm family has been throughout the history of this regiment, and that's the first instance where we see them. Let's move on a bit more. The Mackenzie Rebellion, we were there too, on the government side. It's an interesting story. It was an interesting time in Brampton at that point. our regimental historian, Major Rick Ruggles, wrote an interesting story about that time where we've got militia units rehearsing, practicing their drill in anticipation of this rebellion, because it wasn't a complete surprise. And so they went down to Montgomery's Tavern. They did win. But what happened afterward was neighbor and neighbor kind of situation. In Norville, there was a farmer who fought on the government side, and his neighbor fought on the rebel side. And they were supposed to go out and hunt down the rebels. They hid this guy in his barn, you know, while he went out to hunt for rebels. And his daughter kept, and then finally they got him out of there and got him to the United States. But that was a weird time in this area, in the Mackenzie Rebellion. In 1866, the Fenian Raid started. Now, up to this point, we are a company of a larger unit. After the Fenian Raids were in June. The Royal Canadian Legion celebrates Decoration Day on June 2nd. Decoration Day, we abbreviate it to D-Day, which is correct, but most people assume that's the D-Day landing. It's not, it's Decoration Day. It results from this. In 1890, there was a protest in Toronto about how the government, listen up, Legion members, nothing changes, how the government was not treating their veterans from the Fenian Raids well enough. What? You know, so, no way. Yeah. So they took their decorations and put them on the steps of the then City Hall. That became an annual remembrance parade. And up until the First World War, it was Decoration Day that was on June 2nd every year that was celebrated to honor the fallen. After the First World War, it became Armistice Day, and now it's Remembrance Day. But this was their attempt to make us the 51st state. I don't think it was 50 back then, but we repelled them at the Battle of Ridgeway on June the 2nd. I'm going to skip over some of these. One of the weapons you'll see in the far corner, the Schneider Enfield War. Again, there were people from this community who served in the Boer War. As a matter of fact, there's a really interesting tombstone in the Brampton Cemetery for a Boer War veteran who survived the war, came back to Brampton, passed away. But his age, when he went to the Boer War, it says Boer War veteran on it, but at his age, he was 12 years old. So he must have been a drummer or something, you know, it must have been. This gentleman served in the Boer War. If you look behind Colonel DeRoche, that's his uniform, right here. He's a private in this picture, he ended up as a sergeant. There he is there. Now the First World War. First World War, 1914 to 1918, was greeted initially by enthusiasm. But there were massive amounts of recruiting in the area. This regiment excelled. There is Captain George Brown of Norville, was in the Second Battle of Ypres in 1915, and his journal say, half my men were killed or wounded, and 2 smothered by gas. To avoid being suffocated, they dug holes in the ground and kept their faces in the fresh earth. That's from an actual journal from him. We have some stuff here, this is part of the interactive part. This is some of the kit that they wore. Anyone want to try it on? And the helmets? Feel free. Helmets, yeah?
I'll try it.
Okay, get your camera ready.
There we go.
In the First World War, yeah, we'll go on from there. Because we got a lot to cover, we're only up to First World War. The Ross rifle was the main weapon of choice in the First World War. We got pictures from the trenches, etc. Gas became a new thing in the First World War, and it was excessive, and we've heard a lot of stories about that. So this is the gas mask that they have, and we've got a sample of that right here. You can't try this one on. Okay. You'll see another gas mask later on from the World War II section that really cringes people out. We'll show you that in a few minutes. Lewis gun was also in. Now, in between wars, we were building the regiment establishing alliances with our allied regiment, the Lancashire Fusiliers in England, and we moved from there. So in the aftermath of the war, we established the Fusilier Alliance. Lancaster Fusiliers, it is now the Royal Regiment of Fusiliers, and we share a colonel-in-chief, which is His Royal Highness the Duke of Kent. In the Second World War, we mobilized very quickly. And again, we had, on the day that war was declared, we actually had soldiers in Brampton secure that armory by the end of the day, and guards on, etc. And we were called out. We were one of the first regiments overseas into England. This is Major Colin Doc Heggie, 73 Main Street South. That's where he lived, and that's where his family still lives. He was an incredible man. I met this man. He was obviously a doctor and an officer of Lawrence Cox Regiment when World War II began. He went over. He's a recipient of the George Medal because he was considered a civilian even though he was in a uniform. He would have gotten a higher medal because during a bombing of a building in London, many casualties. He lost some of his nursing staff at the hospital. Main floor is blown out, and there are injured people in the basement. He had people hold him by his ankles so that he could fix up and apply a first aid to the people in the basement. Lieutenant in the Second World War, he was injured. He's quite an amazing man. He joined the Special Service Forces. It was a commando unit that was half Canadian and half American. They were called the Devil's Brigade. And they made a movie about him in the 68, 70, something like that. So he not only had all of his Canadian medals, but he had a Purple Heart, he had the Bronze Star from the U.S. Forces, and he had the Congressional Medal of Honor. Medal of Freedom, not Medal of Honor, from the United States. His shield was shot off, blown off. His American sergeant walked into a minefield. He went in after him and got him out. And on his way out, a landmine blew his shield off. He always walked with a limp, but you'd never know it. He came back, ended up commanding the regiment. He's the original founder of our original museum in another location that was done in the 70s. He has since passed, but without that man's inspiration, this museum would not exist.
Taking another step in our government's effort, the government of Ontario's effort to serve our veteran community better. We know that we can, and when we look at the sacrifice that men and women have made and continue to make in our communities, we know that we can never properly thank our veteran community enough, but we can sure as heck try. And today is another step in the government of Ontario's effort in order to do that. We accomplished what I think was a monumental change last fall when we passed the Honoring Veterans Act 2024, putting in such measures as formal condemnations of stolen valor in provincial law for the first time, as well as a suite of quality of life changes to just thank our service members more and more. Free GO training service on Metrolinx for service members and retired service members. Expanding the Soldiers' Aid Commission from $2,000 to $3,000 a year and making it accessible. We heard from many in our veteran community that accessing the government program was too difficult. And the point of government putting programs out is to make sure that people can use it. So we made it, rather than having to go through every hurdle to prove that you've looked at every option for funding, as long as you've shown that you looked towards federal processes for funding, you're able to access the Soldiers' Aid Commission. We also launched the first ever provincial Ontario, and of any province in Canada, Ontario Veterans Award, which is what we're here to talk about today. We know that Ontario is home to approximately 149,000 veterans, and that number is growing, where we estimate that 8,000 to 9,000 Canadian Armed Forces members are leaving the service every year. And while we are always looking for ways that we can acknowledge individuals for their service while in active service, we felt in the government that there was a huge gap to acknowledge the community service of veterans here at home in Ontario, and acknowledging that life doesn't end when your service ends. Life continues to go on, and your government, the Ontario government, needs to recognize that and acknowledge that. The new award program, which is delivered in collaboration with the Ontario branches of the Royal Canadian Legion, it aims to recognize veterans for their exceptional and ongoing service to their communities, and again, making Ontario the first province in Canada to establish an award specifically dedicated to acknowledging veterans' community service. I'm excited to share that the portal for applications has opened today and will close on August 31st. And we want to encourage all of our local Legion branches, Ontario branches, to get their applications in. Think about who in your community has really exemplified that service. This is our first year running the medal. We want it to go well, and we're open to feedback on how we can make sure that we are flexible in our program delivery in out years on how we can do an even better and a better job. But if we don't get good applicants, then I think we're missing an opportunity for our first year to really go in with a bang. Each year, this award will highlight our collective dedication to recognizing the invaluable contributions of our veterans. I also think it plays a really important part in our efforts in nation building in Canada. Canada in its current form, we've existed since 1867. You look at countries around the world and nations around the world that have lasted the test of time, they've survived a lot longer than that. And while we need to be proud of our history, we also need to make sure that our country lasts for a very long time. And how do we do that? We unite around our collective symbols, we unite around service to our country, and acknowledge those who have served our country, and be damn proud that we live in the best province and the best country in the world, and make no apologies for that. Each year, for this award, Ontario branches of the Royal Canadian Legion will select one veteran who has demonstrated significant and sustained contributions to their community. Award recipients will receive certificates and lapel pins, which will be presented by the nominating branches during local ceremonies in November each year. This award is a representation of community service performed by a veteran. As you can see behind me, we're unveiling the design, which we did in collaboration with Ontario Provincial Command with the Royal Canadian Legion. The pin includes a trillium flower, our provincial flower of Ontario. There's a torch in the center and on a green and gold circle. The flame is considered a symbol of people who have sacrificed, served, and continue to serve. At its center burns an eternal flame, or the flame of hope, which are deeply symbolic to our country, to our province, and to our veterans community. I'd like to extend my heartfelt thanks to the Royal Canadian Legion, Ontario Provincial Command, and the Royal Canadian Legion, Manitoba and Northwest Ontario Command for their partnership in this wonderful program, supporting veterans and fostering a sense of community. I want to thank you all for being here, for your continued support. Together, we can ensure that the legacy of service in our country by veterans to Ontario's communities is honored and remembered. So I'm very grateful to share the space with you today. Looking forward to the tour later on. Thank you very much.
We acknowledge the agreement made in Treaty 19, the Acadian Purchase of 1818, and are committed to our ongoing role in reconciliation through meaningful action rooted in truth, justice, and respect. We are grateful to the original caretakers of this land who have ensured we are able to work, play, and live in Brampton now and in the future. My name is Henry Bouchard, and I am the Government and Community Liaison for the Regional Association of the Lawrence Scots. I welcome you all to the Regional Museum and for the important announcement by Ontario's Minister of Citizenship and Multiculturalism. But before I introduce the Minister, I'd like to point out a few guests who are here today. Representing the Royal Canadian Legion Ontario Command, our first Vice President, Crystal Cook,